Okay, thank you very much for the invitation to be here today, Akabi, but also the audience, so many of you being here. Today's presentation is part of my ongoing work in Turkey, going from 1980s actually until the present. And today's presentation is related to so many aspects of Turkey and Armenia, but I will try and keep it focused as much as I can. I call myself an academic activist. That is, I accept the burden of academic research and being responsible for what I have to say on any given subject. But I also try and apply that to real-life issues, in this case related to Turkish-Armenian and Kurdish relations. So today's event started, if I have to put a date, in 2018. I was in Kharpert on a visit, and I saw this gentleman over here on a poster, and he said, Harput UNESCO yolunda. I didn't say it in English. Harput on the road to UNESCO. We realized that the authorities in Harput, or in Elazığ, had applied to register Harput as a World Heritage Site. So I looked at the Turkish application, and it gave a long history of the Harput-Elazığ region, and it didn't use the word Armenian once. Now, according to my data sources, Armenians were about a third of the population of Harput city, and almost half of the population of the immediate area on the Harput plain. And I felt comfortable in my knowledge because Harput, there's a great range of sources on Harput, in not just obviously Turkish, but English sources, American sources, Armenian sources. So we have a lot of information on that part of the world. Right. So the Turkish authorities wanted, or still want, to turn Harput into a touristic and historical center. And I discussed this issue with some friends, including Önder and Tamar. And I said, if I find the right kind of support network, and I did in the end, I'd like to turn this into a project or a campaign. And I took personal charge of this. I don't normally do this. I said, this will be my personal project. So we started we started by saying we will congratulate the mayor of Elazığ and the governor of Elazığ for this project, to turn Harput into a World Heritage Site. And we wrote to them saying, we would like to work with you, and we should be proud of Harput as not as you represent it, but as a tolerant city in which Muslims and Christians, Armenians, Kurds, Turks, Assyrians live side by side together. And we started to create what I call is a language of peace, with a Facebook page that has developed over the course of the last year. And I would like to sort of run through to that narrative by presenting some slides of the historical background to the subject matter, but also what we observed, or I observed on the ground up to today. This is a general map of Ottoman Empire, Russian Empire, and these red dots are where what was called the Armenian Arash-Nortarans, prelacies, were the church centers. And Harput was one of those centers. The church, so it's a major, is a bishop there, and they were an integrated part of the state system by then. They worked with the local authorities, the kaymakams and the valis, in managing Armenian life in that region. And I chose this particular map, which we have here, from 1878, because this is a product of the Armenian administration from that period. We still have the original statistics, the way they were gathered in 1878, and I was able to map every single settlement except for a handful, very small, not even villages, hamlets. The data is remarkable because it gives information about not just Armenians, but also Muslims, specifically Turks and Kurds as a category. This is highly unusual because we don't have this type of information, ethnic breakdown of Muslims, in Ottoman sources. I'm not aware of anything comparable to this. Obviously, the numbers have to be accepted with a margin of error, but it already gives you a fascinating picture of this area, and the Armenians are clearly an integral part of the history of this part of the world. We can discuss all aspects of this map, but that's not the point of the exercise here. I simply wanted to show the type of information that is available if you take the subject matter seriously. This is a second map, much later, showing only places where Armenians inhabited and their relative populations. This map and the earlier maps match each other in terms of relative population size, but this is much more informed. The statistics is archival records. This is, of course, I generated them for illustration. So we've already shown that Armenians were a major presence in the area, but then the question is of the Kharpert city. Kharpert in Armenian, Harput in Turkish. One can use them interchangeably. So for the Turkish authorities, this is a subversive map because they don't accept the very presence of Armenians. There were never Armenians there in the first place. So this is where the academic activism comes into place. So this map was produced using Turkish sources, Google Maps, Armenian sources, and we've identified the main Armenian quarters and the presence of Armenian and Assyrian churches in the city. So our current project is to get official Turkey in the area to recognize the presence of Armenians there and to try and reintegrate them into their current projects for the development of the city. Our project does not talk about 1915. This is part, again, this is part of the dialogue and peacemaking initiative. The purpose is to begin to talk with each other, to find a language of peace, and we can address a genocide issue much later in more civilized terms. So the question is it possible to strike a dialogue in a part of Turkey that is known for its conservatism and nationalism? And I say, yes, I'd like to see if it's possible. Because my personal experience is that when you're on the ground and you talk to normal people, you find out they're much more open to such suggestions, but one needs to be on the ground and make eye contact. And if we can't make progress, then we will draw appropriate conclusions and make the appropriate changes in our analysis and the way forward after that. So now we'll start a quite quick trip through Kharpert as I've developed over the last year or so. This is today's opening into the city. So the Armenian quarter is out of picture. It doesn't exist. It's been neglected. This is where it starts with the beautiful Ahmed Bey Mosque and many other beautiful mosques. I say beautiful mosque for Armenian audiences because over the past 100 years, I don't think Armenians are able to utter those words. It's like they've lost connection. But I say these are the mosques that they live with. They might have built them. This was part of the social horizons. And we should see the beauty of the Muslim part of Kharpert as well. This is part of the dialogue, potential future dialogue. Just for information, the flags are there because it was Bayram. It's not so nationalistic, shall we say. So this is the entrance. And this is the road that leads into the center of the town today. It's been renovated. One can make comments about the nature of renovation, but it certainly looks nice. It's a bit like Disneyland. Everything is new. It's not for me to judge, but the renovation projects were done by architects with some resemblance or to original structures. In fact, the plans of many of these buildings are still available, so you can see that it wasn't just renovation, as you would say. It was more of a serious attempt. The sites are identified, in Turkish and English. Alacale Mosque. This is Kurşunlu Mosque, very beautiful. This is Arap Baba Mesjid and Turbe. I mean, you can see this is original. Everything else is rebuilt. This is the Meydan, the central area of the city. This is Sarahatun Mosque, nearest to the Armenian quarter. Right, so Armenians living there would have been looking at this as part of their world. By the way, there's a reason I'm showing you for analytical purposes later. So this is Meydan Cami, and it's important. I'll tell you why. It's important because it's been walled, it has a gate on it, and it's cared for. This is another turbe, a Beshirin turbe, Aha Musa, completely new. And this is Esadiye Mosque. Again, except for a few meters of stone at the beginning, it's a completely new structure. So this is what the state wants to be the part of the official landscape of New Harput. This is the oldest mosque, Ulu Mosque. This is Ulu Mosque, the oldest mosque in the area, with its leaning minaret. According to Armenian sources, this was once a church, because nearby is a square called Kesh Meydanı, and Armenians say it was Keshish Meydanı. I don't think that's true, but it's important to recognize this folklore, the different types of knowledge, and that we should apply a critical understanding of of our subject matter. If this was a show about Harput, I would show inside the mosque. It is a beautiful mosque. It's remarkable. Next to Ulu Jami is an area that's been fenced off for future, I guess, archaeological work. So what I'm showing you is typologies. That is renovation, restoration, identifying areas, safeguarding them, walls, gates, and so forth. So this is all part of official memory or future official memory. But this is obviously a gate into a restricted area. This is the last hammam. So in the order of renovations, first are the jamis, then the turbes, then the hammams. So this is being covered. It has a gate on it. It has identified a site, and there's a preservation notice on it. And this is the last Islamic I'm going to show. This is Dabakhan, completely rebuilt. It's interesting because it's not in the center of town. It's on the other side of town. In fact, between this masjid actually and the castle is the Armenian quarter. There was a choice to renovate this, but not to renovate this Armenian structure, which was a church. This is an old picture. The masjid is here. So this was the largest Armenian quarter of Harput, and it's an iconic picture that is still used today without
district or quarter?
I call it quarter, but it's called district. And this is the same photograph today. So our project is to have this area recognized, literally recognized as the Armenian quarter. That's Surp Church that's been left to be destroyed. So it needs to be signposted, recognized, signposted, safeguarded, and then you can decide whether you want to renovate it or keep it as a ruin. One can also do an excavation, because when you walk there, you are literally walking on the ruins of the old quarter. Slightly to the right here was the old Armenian cemetery that's also been destroyed. So this is where academic knowledge comes in, and then, of course, politics of today. Just to give you some pointers. So, Surp Karabed, there was another church here called Surp... Tateos, okay. No, it's not Tateos. Stepanos, here. Surp Stepanos doesn't exist anymore. It's been completely destroyed, but Surp Karabed is there. So when you walk in the quarter from the other end, this is what they've put... They call it Noruz forest now. These are all remnants of the Armenian quarter, the stone. This is a church, Surp Karabed. Some places it has been called Kızıl Kilise, Red Church, but you don't see that anymore. It's unprotected. Anyone can walk there. They can take stones away if they want. And this is next to a conservation area for the Muslim quarter. Another picture, iconic, with the Turkish flag, of course. And this is the center of the quarter. The only other structure that's remaining, it's important, is the Christian hammam, the bathhouse. That's Armenians and Assyrians, Suryanis. Also neglected, same condition. It's not protected. It's not part of the conservation process. All those stones are part of the buildings that were there before. Now, on the other side of town is a smaller Armenian quarter called Surp Hagop. That's Surp Hagop. That's the quarter today. That's the two walls remaining of Surp Hagop Church. It's not identified, signposted, protected. Anyone can go. So what we're trying to do is get the authorities to recognize these as areas of historical interest, and specifically look after the remains of those two churches. Same quarter from a different angle. And behind it it's called Euphrates College, a major American missionary complex. That's the same place now. They got holiday homes at the top and Surp Hagop in the middle. So the point is, you can't deny either the existence of the Armenians, all right, or the heritage that they've left behind for the authorities to consider as part of their legitimate renovation program. This is a picture from this year. I mean, you can see where people are still digging and looking for treasure and damaging. And this is all within sight of the rest of the city. I'm not going to read this, but this is our first letter to and declaration to the Elazığ authorities about working together. It's on our Facebook page as well. And I put this picture in there because the way photographs can be misused and to expose some of the prejudice that we're dealing with here. So this is a huge poster by the side of the road. The explanation says, 1920, I think it's written there, right? 1920 French school. And arka tarafta Gürcü Bey Mahallesi. That's the formal name of the area, but this is also, most of it was Armenian inhabited, and we were actually walking there earlier. And the fact that they call it 1920 also is an indication of their poor research of how much thought goes into these issues, because it wasn't there in 1920. So the official thesis of Turkey on Harput is on very shaky ground. And the UNESCO application is actually a scandal. This is a picture much before World War I. This is the same picture in 1919. This is a very important picture. That's the church, Surpagop. It's off picture to the left. As we know from written sources, the Armenian quarters were destroyed almost immediately in 1915. Next to this, on the left-hand side, is a Muslim quarter. So it is true that much of the Muslim quarter was destroyed or abandoned between 1915 and today. Most of these houses are not there anyway, because of neglect, if nothing else. But the destruction of the Armenian quarter has a very different explanation. This is Surpagop Church. The dome has already been destroyed. Turkish sources call it Erdeli Church. I have no idea why. Historical Turkish sources don't even recognize it by its name. Hagop, they call it Erdeli. That was destroyed. Today it's a car park. So there's not even a signpost or a note on the spot, whereas we've saw how even the remotest Muslim turbays or masjids or mosques have been preserved in terms of memory. There's nothing there whatsoever. So if we put the photographs side by side, you can see the Muslim quarter to the left and the Christian quarter to the right. So this is a type of information that we have. I haven't shared a lot more that I've got with me, and there's a lot more that one can still find in various archives that I haven't even looked at yet. This is from a month ago. One of the layers on top of the sort of topography and the historical sites are a number of museums, so for the new narrative they're trying to build. And of course, they're very proud. It's Elazığ Belediye always. It's not independent academic institutions creating these sites. It's the municipality, the municipality, the municipality. It is beautiful in its own way and very interesting. It's a good idea to have a museum about the press, Elazığ and the Ottoman Empire. Again, lots of, I'll skip that. But it is entirely Latin stroke Turcocentric. For example, it doesn't recognize that there were Armenian presses in Ottoman Empire. I saw one passing reference, and there's not even reference to Armeno-Turkish. That means Turkish language that was published with Armenian alphabet. It's Turkish language books and newspapers. The irony is that across the street from this building, they published a newspaper or a journal called Yeprat in Armenian. So this is a sort of ethnic cleansing that we're trying to rectify. So like journals in Ottoman language, but there were hundreds of Armenian language journals too. That's part of an Ottoman tradition that's completely divorced from their worldview. Okay, and you can see it's a representation of 19th century press. Irony is that behind is the Armenian quarter, the picture. And then it's a nice museum. It's got interesting sections about telegrams and newspapers and communications and photography. And Armenians were famous for photography in Elazığ and Kharpert. In fact, some of those photographs at the top were taken by Armenian photographers. This is where they sort of poor scholarship and they're miseducating their visitors. If there was cooperation, we can rectify this. We can add and subtract, but we can make this thing work. A press museum is a good idea. It's educational. It can be a force for them. There's another one, the music museum, very interesting. Everything we are told is Turkish and Central Asian, which is a shame, because Turks and Armenians share a common regional musical tradition. I wish the director could visit Fresno one day and listen to the music over there. It's the same. It's a local tradition. But music should be reuniting Armenians in Harput in a way that this doesn't do justice to either Turkish or Armenian memory. But this can also be changed. So I'm being positive, right? I'm not attacking anybody, accusing. So this is something that we can still change. This is another building that they want to develop. I don't know how far they will get with it. I think the plans are to lay claims to the culinary tradition in Elazığ as being, again, specifically to the Turkish population, rather than something shared, right, with a range of people, including Armenians. So it looks like a Turkish nationalist project that does not do justice to the memory of the people who live there. And if you talk with local people, 1 out of 2 will comfortably talk more openly about these issues and open to the more integrated approach. They don't feel threatened by the sort of suggestions that we are making. They have another museum, a third one, which is about a bathhouse, hammam. So these are good ideas. Harput becomes a historical center with specific museums that are of general interest for people to go there to see the Ottoman or Turkish press, right? Music, possibly cuisine, but there's also the hammam. I found it very interesting because it's the least political one. I've never been to hammam, so it's just... But what I find interesting, again, this sort of bizarre way, is because they show all other hammams in the area that have been renovated or preserved, including one from the 16th century called Kızıldere Hammam Harput. And the picture is the abandoned Armenian, Assyrian hammam that's not under protection. So it's bizarre because it's, on the one hand, you don't recognize it for what it is, you don't protect it, yet but the knowledge is there in this context to integrate it into a poster. I did not know it was 16th century, so I'd like to know how they know. They must have sources on it. But they've chosen to give it a new name, Kızıldere, Red Valley Hammam, not Armenian or Christian or anything. So this is where the Harput project is going. The idea is to show knowledge-based understanding of what's happening on the ground and to offer to work to change things. We're not asking for credit, but the idea is to find a new way of addressing such problematic representations. And if we are successful, especially with this belediye, it would be a major precedent because of the types of politics on the ground. So Turkish nationalists can still be proud of the fact that they were victorious and the Turks invaded this area in the 11th century. I don't have problems with that. Although I think it's an ugly statue and it should have been better prepared and it's falling apart. And they can have lots of flags once in a while. It is part of history. Turkish state is a reality, the Kemalist movement is a reality, 100th year's anniversary of the Republic is a reality. I think we need to learn how to live with that. It's part of history too. But we can still be integrated the broader history of the region in a truthful way. There's a lot more we can all learn. This is a book I saw by chance. It's a more inclusive book, but I don't know where to buy it. So much of this information is available even in Turkish if you look for it. So nationalist narrative is dominant. It's given preference, but even Turks who want to be critical, better understanding, can still have access to knowledge. This is just from a Turkish source. This is the first source I used for the city of Harput, and I was able to map this onto a Google map and find the locations. So we can credit even Turkish sources as part of our common quest. Again, it's sort of gizli tarihi, right? If you look at the bottom, it's got the quarters, official names, and mosques and other areas, but it doesn't include churches. But it has actually shown where the churches are. It just doesn't include it in the key. And if you read the book, in the book it also makes reference. Right, so this is not Wikipedia stuff or Google stuff. This is real scholarship, but productive scholarship. There's a lot more we can do to have a voice and to be able to confront them for a better outcome. This is from just an Ottoman source, I can see, from mid-19th century. I added the churches and the mosques reference. This is type of map work that we have, just to show you. This is a military map, British. I think the Germans have one as well. Very detailed with all the old names of villages because that have been changed today. So I use this plus, again, modern maps to construct some of the maps that you've seen there. Just to give you an idea, this is from our Armenian archives. I put it just to what does the raw map material looks in this format, but the map work is entirely based on this raw material. So we have a rich heritage source to pull on. And these are some photographs at the Library of Congress, and there are several comparable collections in the United States, just to show you what is we have. I'll go back later. This is a bit of a fun photograph. That's the mayor of Elazığ. I've written to him twice, but he hasn't responded yet. And part of the project, and part of me being here, and part of me talking in this way, is to try and draw his attention for a response, whether he's willing to work on these issues or what else he might suggest. Again, some more photographs. I should have put this on. This is the Muslim quarter, but we have dozens and dozens of photographic records of the presence of Armenians in Harput that is to this day denied by the official narrative of Elazığ Belediye. I guess I should conclude. You've seen, so you have a flavor and understanding of the direction that we are traveling in. The material is compelling, and the official position of Elazığ, of the Belediye in Elazığ, is not convincing. This type of material, especially in the day of internet, of course, will be made available. Not Turkey's bid for UNESCO listing will be ridiculed, and we don't want that to be the case. And there's room here for serious compromise. And I would advise, if not the Belediye Başkanı, at least people living in the area, to try and apply some pressure that perhaps they should consider being more cooperative and changing direction. Right. So in an ideal world, I will have a telephone call tomorrow from Elazığ inviting me over, and then we can discuss what's possible. Thank you for inviting me here today.